the Green Bay Packers were putrid in their final game against Detroit. I thought they would win. I thought they'd win quite easily. Obviously, I was wrong. Obviously, I was wrong by a long shot. They weren't even close. I know the score was close, but they got thoroughly outplayed in that game by Detroit. Um, they just weren't were not super great. They played pretty sloppy on both sides of the ball. Aaron Jones again fumbled in a big game. He did it in 2020 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, set them up, got them an easy 7. Fumbled and took away at least 3 in this game. Not sure if it necessarily would have mattered towards the end, but I think that would have made it a 2-score game going into half. Instead, Detroit, winds up driving down the field, getting a field goal of their own. And then, it's a completely different story, right? With, them having the ability to keep it a 1-score game, a 3-point game at half is what I think it was, 9-6 from that after that late field goal by Detroit. But Aaron Rodgers did not play particularly well all season, really. But in this game, he wasn't great. In the first half, he looked fairly good, I would say. Like, he didn't look horrible, but I think his first half stats, he was like 10 for 12, 100 and something yards. Had the touchdown in the second half, but like he played fairly efficient ball. Like, the only 2 incompletions or 3 incompletions in the first half were all drops, right? Or at least ones that the receiver should have caught. But he played really bad when they needed him the most, and that's starting to become a theme as we move on in the season. There are these past couple seasons, right? San Francisco last year, Tampa Bay the year before. Although I don't think he played that bad in the game. He had an interception that should have been called off due to pass interference. It wasn't, but whatever. And then late in that game, he just wasn't able to score. I don't think he played particularly horribly. You go back and look at that. He was putting throws on guys for the most part. Yeah, that last drive it stalled, but that wasn't like some massive choke job. The past 2 years, yeah, he didn't play well when they needed him to play well the most, when they couldn't get the running game going, right? This is another game against the Lions where the rushing attack was not working. Last time he was their leading rusher. This time he was not, but the team was getting less than 4 yards a carry. Rodgers himself, 3 rushes for 10 yards. Christian Watson got 12 on a reverse, but Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon weren't super great. Dillon kind of looked pretty sluggish. Aaron Jones out of the backfield was a nice receiving threat. But again, he had 12 carries for 48 yards, 4 a pop. And then obviously if you run it with him every time, that's a first down, but that's not how it works. He wasn't, spectacular in this game, although he, caught a couple of passes. But it starts a long off season for the Packers, I think. A really, really, really long off season where I have absolutely no idea where they're going to go and what they're going to do. Absolutely no idea. I don't know if they're going to hold on to Rodgers. I don't know if they are going to get rid of Rodgers. I don't think that Rodgers is going to play anywhere else, is my personal opinion on the thing. I think he's expressed how much he wants to continue to be a Green Bay Packer and retire a Packer and all the stuff involved with that. But who knows? Again, second, or if you want to count Tampa Bay, 3rd year in a row where we've seen him, I don't know if you want to call it meltdown or choke or whatever you want to call it. He did it at the end of the game. Again. Very long off season. The reason I kind of wanted to wait on this is I was hoping to get some sort of news on, or more clarity on what, their off-season situation was going to look like, whether that was, changes to the coaching staff or whatever, but we didn't get that. We didn't. It seems like they're retaining Joe Barry. Maybe that's news. It seems like he somehow saved his job again after, locking down mediocre teams at the end of the year. And even the Lions, like, a lot of the reasons that I wanted him fired were exposed in this game. Like, yeah, he pitched a fantastic game against Minnesota last week. And yeah, they were able to take away Justin Jefferson like no team has at all this season. No team has been able to take away Justin Jefferson like the Packers did. In the second game, of course. The first game, he went crazy. So he kind of owed us one. But like, go down, go back to that fourth down, the one that, the Packers wouldn't have marched down the field had they gotten the stop anyway. But like, playing a soft zone, it looked like, on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, the season on the line, and we're running a soft zone. We're not manning people up. Why are we paying Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas? Why are we paying these guys to then not man them up and just let some receiver just sit wide open, a couple yards past the first down marker, and that's how the season ends. And it's all very interesting, and I'll try to focus a little bit more on off-season stuff in a little bit. But Aaron Rodgers got asked a question in his post-game presser, and they asked if the Packers got what they deserved, and they for sure did. They did. Rodgers took him a while, but he said, yeah, that they did. And I think he's correct on that. Like, they weren't a particularly good team. The problems that they had at the beginning of the season, they still had at the end of the season, whether that's just him, not trusting the younger guys, although I don't think that's as big of an issue necessarily. Like, you saw at the end of the game, he trusted kind of halfway Christian Watson to try to go up for a jump ball. It was more like an arm punt, but it's, he wasn't like, I'm not throwing that to him because he's a rookie. Like, I don't think that was an issue, but like, there are issues with giving up points at the end of half. That one, their defense not being able to get off the field on, 2nd, 3rd and long. It was like, what, 2nd and 17 or something crazy like that. And, the Lions running back just splits the 2 tacklers and picks up the first down. It's just something that shouldn't happen. And it happens over and over and over and over again with this defense. It seems to not matter who's coordinating it. It seems like whenever, 3rd down and long, and I'd bet more money on that the team's going to pick it up than the Packers are going to be able to stop it. Like, a lot of these games, it was like the second the game got tight, the team just went into panic mode, like flat out panic mode. Like, the only game that didn't really happen in were games against the Bears. And then the Bears, the Cowboys, I guess if you want to call that, stop in overtime. The Patriots, I got to stop in overtime, got the ball back, went and scored. But like, the Buccaneers, they made a stop on the 2-point conversion, but they still let Brady march down the field for a touchdown. The Giants game, the offense stalled in the red zone. Commanders game, offense stalled. Bills game, they were getting blown out. Lions game, offense stalled, red zone. Titans game, offense stalled, only put up 17 points. Eagles game, defense couldn't get a stop, couldn't get off the field. And then, of course, their season ends with Detroit, their offense stalling, and their team not being able, their offense not being able to put up some points so their defense can't get off the field. It's the same problem that they've had for quite a while. And it's insanely frustrating because this was your shot. I've talked, our guest who should be joining us here pretty shortly, Dallas, we talked about it. Like, we talked about, he kind of asked like what the Packers cap situation is like in terms of, can they go like a full, Drew Brees is the example that we used, right? Like, can they go and completely blow up their cap situation for, the next couple of years and try to go in now? But they've done that. They've done that already. I think after setting aside, money for draft picks and tendering the guys that they're likely going to tender and re-sign, It's like they're negative $40 million in cap space. And, they have negative $40 million in cap space. Negative $40 million in cap space. I'll bring Dallas on in just a couple minutes. But again, at this point, whatever they do this offseason, it can't convince me that they're a contender. Or, I'm sure do I think that they will probably make the playoffs next year? I would bet on it. Would I bet? I bet that the roster is probably going to play better. Do I know by how much? Not necessarily. I don't think that they're going to be some, fantastic team, Super Bowl contender. There's nothing they could do to make them look like a Super Bowl contender. Because if they didn't get there in 2020 and didn't get there last year, and I think last year was a better team than they had in 2020, then they're probably just not going to get there.